So what impacts early childhood attachment and the relationships you have today? Well, it was that early consistent caregiving that you got from whoever was in charge of you at the time. Attachments, why you feel about relationships the way you do, is what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes. Have you ever wondered why some people have it such an easy time making friendships? Others of your friends, you'll notice, they never connect to anybody, and still others seem like they don't care if they have friends or not. Well, we're going to answer those questions today, and you'll know the answer. What if I told you that the quality of your relationships started in the first year of life? And that can be any kind of relationship. It could be mom and dad, it could be grandma and grandpa, it could be your BFF, or it could be your sweetie pie. So, I don't know if you believe me or not, but that's where we're going. But first, because this is school, we're going to start with a quiz, right? So I'm going to give you 4 options. They're on your handout. I don't want you to actually answer. I want you just to think. All right, so are you number 1? I find it relatively easy to get close to others, and I'm comfortable depending on them and having them depend on me. I don't really worry about being abandoned or losing a friend or about someone getting too close to me. Maybe you're in the second group. I'm somewhat uncomfortable being close to others, and I find it difficult to trust them. I find it difficult to depend on them. I get nervous when anybody gets too close to me, and often friends want me to be closer to them and share more secrets and be more intimate than I feel comfortable being. Or position C. I find others are reluctant to get as close as I would like them. I often worry that my friends don't really love me or won't want to stay with me. Sometimes I want to just merge completely with that person and just be them because they're so cool. I want to be just like them, and this sometimes scares people away. Or perhaps you're in the 4th category. I really don't have any clue how to get friends. I've tried everything, but nothing seems to work consistently. And I'm better off alone because relationships are painful. So you're thinking about, well, kind of which one of those sounds like you, and what does that have to do with attachment? Well, think about things you're attached to. Maybe mom and dad. Okay, we'll start there. And if you are attached to someone, an attachment is a reciprocal, meaning it goes both ways. There's give and take on both sides. Enduring, lasts a long time, like a chewy, chewy Tootsie Roll, relationship between 2 people, each of whom contribute to the quality of the relationship. So it's not like the one-sided friendships. We've all had those where you get a friend who's a taker, and it's like, you know, give me, give me, give me, and they never give back. That's not an attachment relationships. That could be a stalker, but that's a topic for another day. So as you think about some of the people that you're attached to, probably your family members. Let's say you had a functional family. Siblings, friends, who else? Anybody else you can think of you might be attached to? Okay, there's lots of people. So what does that early childhood attachment have to do with you now? Do you think it might have any bearing on your current relationships, or maybe a lack of current relationships? A number of years ago in London, England, a researcher named John Bowlby was researching children. He actually started out researching juvenile thieves. And he thought that perhaps these teenagers were thieves because of poor parenting. So then he went back to start studying what it is in that first year of life that changes a child to make them either secure in their relationships or make them have difficulty with relationships. What he found was there were basically 4 factors that make up an attachment relationship. And if you can think back long enough to when you were a kid and you're on the playground, or maybe you've just been to a playground and seen mother-child pairs. One is they like to maintain proximity to the parent or whoever it is. I'm just going to say mom in most instances because usually mom is the caregiver. So let's say that the toddler is out playing, but they're never really going to quite let her get out of sight. It's like, I'm over here, Mommy, can you still see me? And as long as they're in visual contact, life is safe, the world is good. And that's proximity. And if she does get too far out of sight, there's the, hey, look at me, looky what I can do. I can stand on one foot, I can wave, and they'll do all kinds of behaviors to reattach and to get the parent to start watching again. The parent provides a safe haven for the child so that when the child does fall down and hurt their knee, where do they go? Mommy, boo-boo, wah, wah, wah. The mother pulls out a Band-Aid and a magic mommy kiss. All better, off they go, as long as they can keep an eye on her. They're also a secure base from which to explore the world. So if they're there, they're not afraid to go and meet a stranger or to talk to the new kid because they're secure. If you think about baseball, especially the St. Louis Cardinals, because we all know that's everyone's favorite team, they provide a secure base, and the runner will tag up, and then they'll move out a little bit more, getting ready for the next ball to be hit. But if it's not, they have to go back and tag up again. It's the same thing, excuse me, with children. They provide a secure base, and it makes them safe. And finally, separation distress. Most of y'all were babysitters at some time in your life, whether it be a paid position or your younger siblings. And you know that as soon as mom and dad leave, what happens? They just begin to cry. And it's not a pretty sight. Okay, so now think about your BFF. Sorry. If you've had a really bad day, what are you going to do? You might call them up. You will not believe what happened in class today. Oh, I can't believe this, blah, 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 blah. So they provide your safe haven. They're your secure base. You can say anything you want and they won't judge you. You don't really like it when they go away, but you can live with it. And you like hanging out with them. Okay, so let's say maybe it's your sweetie pie. Okay, then the separation distress is even greater because now when you're away from sweetie, you doodle their names and draw little hearts around it and text them, can you talk yet? I'm dying here without you, please. So those are the main criteria. Last year, I went to the animal shelter and adopted a kitten. I know, rescuer, yay. But this kitten had been in the shelter with 100 other cats. It was quite the experience. But we have an attachment relationship. She loves to go outside. So often I will open the sliding door on the patio and her name's Smokey. Smokey goes outside. And if something scares her, she comes running back in and tags up. It's like, are you still there? Okay, Mommy's still here. I can go back out now and face anything. And she has those same attachment characteristics that a young child does with their mother or you with your sweetie. It's very similar. So you're thinking, so how does this work? If the mom or the attachment figure is nearby and attentive, consistently responsive to the child's need in that first year, and I'm talking about the first year because in the first year we don't have any words. There's no language to say what you're feeling or thinking, and there's no will. The baby's not laying in the crib thinking, wonder what I can do to make mom really mad today. That's not happening. They're just a bundle of needs, and they cry when they're hungry, they cry when they're wet, they cry when they're hot. Yeah, and that's what happens. So is mother there to take care of those needs? Does she pick them up? Does she talk to them? Does she change them and feed them and hug them and cuddle them and sing songs and all those things good moms do? If she is, then the child becomes securely attached. They feel love and they feel self-confidence. And later on in preschool, these children are more playful, they have more imagination, they explore more, and they're more sociable with other kids. Yay. And Bowlby says about 60% of us grew up in a home like that. Most moms do a pretty good job. But what if she's not sufficiently attentive and responsive? Well, there's two ways not to be. One is you can be inconsistently not responsive. So sometimes the baby cries and she picks him up, and other times she's busy doing other stuff. and the baby has to cry and cry. So it's the inconsistent, and the child becomes preoccupied with the relationship. Is she going to be there? Is she not going to be there? And they will begin to do things like clinging and crying and whining. You've seen them in restaurants and in Walmart because they get louder. Mom, mom, mom! And by the time the child gets the attention, both of them are angry. And neither, what do you want? You're always yelling and embarrassing me. Yeah, you've seen all that. You're thinking, next time you'll go up and say to him, I believe you have an insecure attachment relationship with your child. Maybe don't, but that's what's going on. And then there's the mom that is inconsistently unresponsive. She never meets the child's needs. She's so self-preoccupied, she doesn't pick them up. She doesn't attend to their cry. The child becomes defensively avoidant of relationships because the child's learned in this first year, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I'm just going to have to suck it up and do it myself because nobody else is ever going to be there for me. If my mother's not there for me, why would I expect anybody else to be? Now, as the baby's relationship with the parent develops into one of these types of attachment, the parent hopefully is providing warm, responsive nurturance, and the emotional bond of trust happens in that first year. What we're doing that first year before the words, before the will, is developing an internal working model. And the answer to two of the most important questions we ask happen in that first year. And the questions are, am I okay? Am I lovable? Is there anything about me that somebody else might like? And on the other question is, are other people trustworthy? Will they be there for me? Can I trust you to show up when I need you? And depending on how you answer those two questions now as adults, will kind of show you retrospectively what your attachment style is. So let's say that you think you're okay. I'm pretty okay. Sometimes I've got better days than others, but most of the time I'm all right. And other people are trustworthy. So you've got positive thoughts of yourself and others. That puts you in the secure attachment category. You're comfortable with intimacy. You don't mind sharing secrets and telling stories. It's like, oh, you won't believe what I did. And you're okay with that. You're in a secure position. Maybe you think, I'm not okay. There's something fundamentally wrong with me, and if other people found out, they wouldn't like me. I'm kind of like leading this double life where I put on this big facade, but if you really knew me, you would reject me. Because other people are okay, they're trustworthy and they're fine, but I'm not. And that's the preoccupied category, where you get so preoccupied with the relationship you can't think about anything because of the if they really knew me part. So you do things to make them like you. You'll take them gifts or bring them presents or tell them how wonderful they are all the time so that they won't drop your friendship. Another category is where I'm okay and you're not, okay? That's a dismissive type of attachment relationship. We're dismissive of intimacy. It's a talk to the hand, okay? I can't trust you. You won't be there for me. I know you're going to let me down, so just back it up. Back up the truck. And then the final position is I'm not okay and you're not either. So my self-esteem is low and I don't think you're trustworthy. And now I'm very fearful of relationships and I'm going to avoid any kind of social contact, rather be by myself all the time. Some of us like to be by ourselves some of the time just because people wear you out, but not all of the time. So as you think about those 4 different positions and how you feel about yourself and others, you can get an idea of where your attachment relationship is. Now, a student of John Bowlby's, her name was Mary Ainsworth, she conducted a now famous experiment called the strange situation. She was quite British, so maybe I should talk like that, all right then? Strange situation. It's not so much that it was weird, strange, but it was unusual for the baby and it puts the baby under some stress. So initially she observed 72 mother-infant pairs and she would go to the house and film How do they go about feeding? How they go about changing, crying, cuddling, eye contact? Does the parent pick them up and look at them and smile at them? So she observed that for 72 hours. That's a lot of observation. When the babies were about 1, she asked them to bring them in to the child development lab, where of course there's the sneaky one-way mirror where I can see you but you can't see me. And they put the mother and the baby in a room with some toys. That's the part that was strange to the child. It was a new situation they had never been in before. Okay, there's Mary. Say hi to Mary. Hi, Mary. So they put the parent and the child alone in a room, and the child explores the room, and the parent's just kind of sitting there in the chair, and then someone the baby doesn't know comes into the room, the stranger, and greets the parent briefly, hello, and then tries to interact with the child. Hey, do you want to play with this toy? Won't this be fun? And then the parent gets a signal to tippy-toe on out of the room. And then in a few minutes, the parent comes back. So what they want to know is A, what happens when the parent leaves? And B, what happens when they come back? Okay, so what are some ways you think the baby might have responded when the mother left? Boo-hoo, boo-hoo, right? Exactly. They could have cried, mommy, 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 which most of them did. They might have had a tantrum. They could have pouted. Some just ignored it. It's like, oh, she's not here? They might have tried to fight with the stranger, or they could get really clingy. And so there was a variety of things. But the most interesting thing to them was what happened when the mother came back, what the psychologists call the reunion, okay? Because are they comforted when she's back or not? The securely attached babies initially kept an eye on mom, but were willing to explore the room because she's there, they're safe. They cried when she left, but when she came back, they wanted to be held and were quickly comforted. Hold their arms up, mom picks them up, magic, turn a light switch, baby stops crying, everything's all better. Mother is responsive, safe harbor, my world is safe again because mommy's here. In the long term, these kids were higher in social competence, in their own self-esteem, in empathy, being able to take on other people's feelings, and in peer relationships. All right, item 1. The ambivalent children. Have you ever felt ambivalent about anything? Okay, because you kind of feel both ways. Like if a 10-year-old boy really, really wanted a bike for Christmas and his parents couldn't afford a new one, so they got a girl bike at a garage sale and it's pink and purple and has flowers on it. He's going to feel ambivalent. It's like, yay, it's a bike, but it's a girly bike. So we've all had those two-way feelings sometimes. These children were pretty clingy before mom ever left the room. They were afraid to explore because she might sneak out, she might disappear. She's done that before, you can't trust her. They were very anxious, much more anxious than the secure children were. When she came back in the room for the reunion, they held their hands up, but when she picked him up, there wasn't a snuggle. Sometimes they tried to turn away and pull away from her and get back down, or some of them even took a swat at her and gave her a pop in the head. Because they don't know. They're angry, but they're glad to see her. But how dare you leave me in the first place, you rotten mom, but I'm glad you're here, but I'm mad at you still. Pick me up, put me down, I hate you, I love you. And it's really, really confusing for the child. This mother may or may not respond. She might be there for him, but pretty much she's so preoccupied with herself and wondering, way back in the past, I wonder if mom ever loved me, that she can't really pay attention to her child in the present. And the baby has to cry so much that she's angry by the time she gets mom's attention. The third set of children are what they call avoidantly attached. These kids explored the room, played with all the toys, but they did not keep an eye on mother. When she left, they didn't notice. When she came back, Hakuna Matata, whatever. They have found that she was pretty insensitive and rejecting of their needs. They feel unlovable. They don't seek comfort. They don't have anyone to trust, and people aren't trustworthy. These children have a lot less make-believe play, a lot less fantasy life, and they can't trust. A number of years later, a fourth category was found by a student of Mary Ainsworth, who was also a Mary Maines. And she discovered a fourth style of children. These children looked dazed and confused. The proverbial deer in the headlights type of look when mother was there. Some of them just froze and stared. Some approached mother backwards to be picked up. Why in the world would you walk backwards to somebody to get picked up? It's safer that way. If somebody's going to hurt you, it hurts less to get hit in the back than it does in the face. And they found that most of these children, 80% of children in the disorganized category, were being abused or neglected. And so these kids had learned either to make themselves very small, so maybe mother won't notice me, or not to do anything, so I can't get in trouble. And they had learned how to deal with that. And so they called it disorganized because there was no one approach the children could use to get a relationship with their mom. Nothing worked. They tried it all. Nothing ever worked. So what about as we grow up? As children, the securely attached parents were able to separate. Dropping them off at daycare or when the babysitter comes. They may cry for a little bit, but you can go, hey, let's go play your favorite game. Oh, okay, off they go. When they're scared, when there's a thunderstorm, they run and get in bed with mom and dad. When something goes on, mom and dad are there to comfort them. When mom and dad come home, they're happy about it. And they would rather hang out with mom and dad than strangers. I know that sounds really weird because who wouldn't, but some of these children don't. All grown up, like y'all, they have trusting relationships. They have healthy friendships. They have pretty good self-esteem. They're comfortable sharing their feelings with their friends. And they tend to seek out social support, not only when the days are bad, but when you have great stuff to share too. Oh my gosh, I got a candy bar today. The ambivalent children are a little wary of strangers. Have you ever seen the children that like stick to their parent's leg and then like lean out? And it's like, oh, stranger, danger. So they're a little wary, and it takes them a lot longer to warm up than the other children. They're very distressed when mom and dad leave. And they're not really comforted when they come back. It's like, I'm still really upset with you, just like in the strange situation. Grown-up ambivalent children are reluctant to make friendships. You can tell me your stuff, but I'm pretty much not telling you mine because it's too scary. They worry that their friends don't really care about them and that they're going to leave them, and they get super upset when a relationship ends. Avoidant children tend to avoid their parents. They don't seek comfort or contact from parents because these are the ones that the parents have never been there for them. There's little preference over a stranger versus the parent. I took care of a little boy one time. He was my son's best friend, and his parents wanted to go on a second honeymoon. And he had one line of caregivers after another because both parents worked, and this child didn't have consistent parenting. So he was fine staying with me, and even during that time he got meningitis, which is a swelling of the brain, and I'm like freaked out because this little boy's in my care and I have to take him in the emergency room, but he never called for her. He was just as fine with me taking care of him as his mother. Growing up, they're not going to invest in social relationships and social interaction, and they don't share their thoughts and feelings. And then the disorganized, sometimes these kids have to be the parents because perhaps the parents are on drugs and maybe they're just crashed out. So even at age 6, the child might have to cover them up and clean up their mess and call in, Mommy can't come to work today. And they become an adult as a child and lose their childhood because they're what we call parentified. So what impacts early childhood attachment and the relationships you have today? Well, it was that early consistent caregiving that you got from whoever was in charge of you at the time. And it's that interactional synchrony where the child has a need and the mother picks him up. Even though she hasn't slept in 3 months and she's really, really tired, she still will show up for that baby. And what is the parent's internal working model? Do they pass their model of self and others on to the child? Probably. We can't trust those people, honey. Don't go play with them. Or, it's okay, go play with them. But here's the good news. Even if you didn't grow up in a securely attached environment and had that relationship with your parents, or maybe you had it with mom and not with dad and it wasn't the same, because a lot of times it's not, you don't have to spend your life with unsatisfactory relationships. That's the good news. Your internal working model of self and others can be changed. And going through counseling to talk about what happened back then is going to help you to be able to trust again and to love and be loved.